wheels underway. Stamps his authority once again.
My word, this could go wrong.
On the brakes, goodness me, what a launch.
Look at that.
It just all comes down to this. Here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. Round number 4 of the Almost Pro Championship. Season number 9 is ready to get underway, and the drivers head to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix with a decent amount of intrigue and a decently close drivers' standings and constructors' standings as well. We'll get onto both of those points as we head through the evening. But for now, hello, my name's Joseph Black, and I'll be taking you through the action alongside, finally, he's back in the league. And, it's been a while, but welcome back, Owen.
Hello, Joseph, and I'm so excited to be back in the Almost Pro Championship for this broadcast here, as you said, at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, and a circuit which is highly technical, and a circuit where qualifying is incredibly difficult. You know, there are so many corners where it's so difficult to keep your lap valid, you know, turn 1, turn 2, turn 5... and then obviously Aqua Minerale, and then the chicane afterwards. It's going to be such a challenging qualifying session for our drivers, but at least they have 32 laps of racing to try and make up for it if they have a poor qualifying.
They're going to have to push those cars incredibly hard. It's not that easy to keep it within the limits around the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix circuit, but that is certainly what they are going to be trying to do this evening, and hoping that they're going to get a valid lap, and they're going to hopefully be able to kick on and get decent times in qualifying and the race as well. Here is the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, 19 turns, 4.909 kilometres and 3.05 miles around the it's around the Autodromo Enzo Edina Ferrari. One of those turns, turn number 1, not really being a true corner, but being counted as the first one on that racetrack. And, we've got all of our drivers getting ready, at least to get ready, and seeing what they can do around this Italian circuit, being knocked off the calendar for F1 in 2026, but we get to enjoy it for now.
Yeah, and it is an absolute shame that it's coming off the calendar. You know, it's such an iconic circuit. It's been here, since the 1960s, I believe. So it's a real shame that we're losing it, but at the end of the day, you know, sometimes tracks have to rotate, and sometimes we lose some iconic ones because of it.
Yeah, and, of course, the main circuit in Italy is the reason for this, simply because they didn't feel as though they could have 2 circuits from the same country. I think it's the main descriptor behind it, of course, Monza being Monza, and Imola not quite having that same level of aura as Monza, to use a very, very 2025 term. But we are now getting ready to head into our qualifying session around the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, and then after that, we will see what the drivers are going to be capable of as we head into race day. But in a second, we will bring you, once we load in the qualifying session around the Italian circuit. And, it's a circuit that has changed so many times since its inauguration. And, it's always either for safety or for better racing. And it's fair to say that this track has evolved with the times.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, the most notable change is, of course, Tamburello. What is the first official corner of the lap, which was, of course, changed after Ayrton Senna, unfortunately, lost his life to that corner. But as you said, it has evolved with the times. The curbs in the F1 game, especially, it's evolved with the times. This is the first game where Imola has been scanned, so those curbs have changed quite a lot, and you can cut that turn 1 corner curb quite a lot more than you could in F1 24. So it's going to be interesting to see how much our drivers in this session push those limits.
It certainly will be, and pushing the limits is exactly what you need to do if you want to get any sort of a decent lap time in around the potentially second best Italian circuit. Of course, used to be the San Marino Grand Prix, despite the fact it's not actually San Marino, but we can bring you race track side footage even. Circuit, and there we go then. That's the pit boxes, and that is the first car coming out of the pit, and I believe that is going to be Daniel Riley, the first one out on track. No, he's not, and he's pretty happy with the progress that he's had as well. And well, Dan Riley, he's one of those drivers that's almost on the brink of being somebody up there with the likes of Cenk-Van, but never quite there. It feels like it is always the case for Dan. He's not submitted, of course, his pre-race day interview, but the last time he spoke, he was very, very confident about the performances he would be able to put in around Bahrain. Less confident about Imola, but of course, a driver in form. And when you've got that form, it almost feels like, regardless of the circuit even, you're going to be able to get something on the board. I've just realised you were muted for that, so unfortunately I'm going to have to drag the thing in again. Of course, it's been great having you back, and it will be great having you back throughout the course of the race, but what it does mean is everything is exactly how I would have it if I was alone. That's the constructors' standings, and well, you mentioned this. You mentioned the championship. I'm going to run you through it now. So Ferrari, Andrea Cenk-Van, and Ethan Shackleton are the leaders in that one, and they are just the 12 points ahead of Mercedes in that second place. Then there's a huge gap back to Bridge for Racing Bulls, but McLaren and Kick Sauber level on points. Williams just 5 behind, and Aston Martin with just 10 points on the board so far. But then having a look at the standings, and it's going to be Stephen Snell at the top, and second place going to Shackleton, third for Andrea Cenk-Van, and that is the reason they are on top of the constructors' standings right now. Benjamin D in that fourth place, Dan Riley with 32 points in fifth, and it feels like those 5 drivers have really taken this season by the bit so far.
Yeah, definitely. You know, Stephen Snell has come into the championship and has played a significant role in pretty much every single race so far. Of course, he is actually missing from this race, and his seat has been taken by a new driver, Bert. So interested to see what he can do, whether he can stamp.
Yes, and again, I do apologise that we weren't able to hear your true opinions on the start of this qualifying session, but of course I'm glad that we've stamped out that problem now, and it seems to be a consistent problem for me, I think, for some reason in this game, as the first few laps thrown in, and it's going to be Jack Weaver on top of the standings with a 1:16.242. Connor Stewart would have not too far behind as well. Could this be the weekend where we see McLaren's fortunes start to shift?
To do with struggling to adapt to a PC, or it is just, you know, the championship getting that little bit faster, which it most definitely has. I'm not too sure, but we will see. You know, Kyle felt pretty good in the practice. I was in an Xbox party with him whilst he was practicing, and he felt pretty good, and he's actually only about 3.5 tenths off of his time trial, so definitely some time in his lap, considering how much faster a qualifying session is in this game.
Yes, well, we'll see what Carl's able to do at the moment. He's got a 16.3 in a pretty decently tight field. Ethan Shackleton up at the top of the times with a 1:15.700, dead on a 1:15 then. And, well, that's not a bad time to set, but Dan Riley goes even faster. And I mentioned that he's going to be potentially one of the contenders. He wasn't able to get that first lap on the board straight away, but that looks half decent. And Andrea Cenk-Van going faster by 9 tenths, almost dead on, 9 tenths of a second. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, and this is a little something that I think I should mention. Andrea Cenk-Van has had practice at Imola this week. Andrea Cenk-Van races in me and Brian Moore's league, and we had our mystery Grand Prix on Saturday, and the track that came out just happened to be Imola, which was really, really weird. I said it on stream because Kyle was on co-coms with me. Anybody in APC was going to be very, very happy about that. And it actually makes it 2 weeks in a row that WRL and APC have the exact same race, as this weekend we have the same race as APC as well.
It's almost like you're trying to partner them or something like that. There's nothing wrong with a little shameless self-plug, though, so that's
We are
fair
actually
enough.
partnered. We are actually partnered.
Well,
APC and WRL are partnered.
I knew it was one of your leagues. I didn't know it was exactly this one, but there we go.
Yes, it is.
There we go. We've got our second laps ready to get underway. Brian Moore, 19.7 on the board, so not ideal for him, as everybody apart from Paul Garung has been able to set a lap time, and it's Chenkvan on top, Dan Riley in second, Ethan Shackleton in third, and Bert in fourth place, and that is the way that the top four generally tends to go here in APC, where it's going to be Mercedes and Ferrari interlinking. Then Stuart Tower in that fifth place. No Harry Jennings, though. It's just going to be Tower who's going to be representing Williams this evening. Jack Weaver in that sixth place, his teammate down in 10th, Brian Moore, and then the two McLarens together on the circuit, as they have been all year long, Connor Stewart Woodard and Kyle in 7th and 8th, and Lucas Seracini in 9th, and Paul Garung in that 11th place, who's on his first flyer now.
Yeah, and something to keep an eye on, Andrea Chenkovan is nearly a 10th and a half up. He went for a recharge lap, and he's on another lap now, and is a 10th and a half up as he goes through Aqua Minerale. There we are, up towards the chicane. What is his split time going to be? He is half a tenth up, so he's lost about a tenth of a second in the middle sector, but that is something definitely to keep an eye on in the final sector.
Well, he's going to try and go as fast as he can. Of course he is. As he heads around that final sector, he was 9/10 up on anybody else in his first run. Ethan Shackleton has improved. Andrea Chenkovan, somehow that's still a valid lap. And around the final corner, still valid, but he's going to come into the pits anyway, because while it was still a valid lap, he ran off the circuit, so it wasn't necessarily the quickest lap time he could have possibly set. Paul Garung is going to come up to the line, 1:15.8. He's going to go slotting right into the mid-pack into 5th, and just behind Stuart Towers by just 0.02 of a second. So that is a very, very strong lap time, and two very close drivers together on the circuit. Jack Weaver ready to start his second push lap. His first one was a 16.2, and well, he just gets out the way of that McLaren, or the McLaren actually gets out the way of him as they head down the straight. Mutual respect between the two as he gets past the Aston Martin as well. Paul Garung on his in lap and just tries to throw the car into all of these corners. You've got to be unafraid of the curbing, but not taking too much of it, which is exactly what Jack Weaver's done, and he's invalidated. But he was up in the first sector, so there's time in all of these laps.
Yeah, and especially that reigns true at Imola, a circuit where it's so difficult to get a lap like 100% perfect. I don't think I've ever seen somebody in a qualifying session at Imola 100% happy with their lap time. As I said, it's just so difficult to get the perfect lap, especially if you're on controller.
Yes, on controller, this lap is just especially hard. Fun fact about this circuit, actually, and I'll get this one out there just because it's popped to mind. I have driven this circuit in a not like in real life, but a real life Formula One chassis, where in the Mercedes, I don't know if this is still a thing, but in the Mercedes base in Brackley, you can actually drive I believe it's the 2012 chassis, where they've set up a simulator. It's on F123 for some reason, as Bert invalidates and is not going to improve. He was improving, so there's promise in that lap time. But yeah, I've driven in the 2012 chassis around Imola. I was absolutely hopeless, but I did do it. So that's a little subtle flex that I've got out there. But anyway, these drivers, of course, not having the luxury of a real Mercedes chassis. As much as Bert and Daniel Riley would like it, the team haven't quite allowed it to them just yet. They need to see something in the championship so far. Jack Weaver on another lap, and I wonder whether this is another push.
Yeah, it's most definitely a push. Watching his battery deployment as he is 0.03 of a second up, so exactly half what he was when he invalidated that lap time. But crucially, this one is valid, as now he heads to this left-hand, a really tricky corner. Takes a lot of curbs, something you actually can do on that corner as he now charges down towards Aqua Minerale.
He certainly does, and well, we'll see what this time is. As he comes up to the second split, it's going to be... Is it going to be up on his time? Just a little bit, not as much as on the first lap. It's 8/10, but he's run over the curbing again on the inside of the chicane, and that's going to be Jack Weaver's lap gone again. And I said that you needed to throw the car into all of the corners, and Jack Weaver just throwing it over the line right now.
Yeah, hitting that track limit at the chicane, as I said earlier, is such an easy thing to do, you know. There's so much time to be gained by cutting that chicane. if you manage to keep a wheel on the circuit. If you don't keep a wheel on the circuit, well, that's your lap gone on the spot.
Yes, it's of course you're not allowed many mistakes here around Imola, and that is exactly what the drivers are finding right now. As we saw Jack Weaver invalidate 2 laps in a row, his teammate Brian Moore is going to try and do a little bit better. He is currently a second off of Lucas Aracini in that 10th place, so time to find on this lap, but it's certainly so much better than his first push lap, where he set, I believe it was a 1:19, throwing the car into the chicane. Can he come out of the other end of it with a positive time? It's going to be no. I believe he might actually be on his in-lap. In fact, it just looked like couldn't quite decide whether it was an in-lap or an out-lap. Dan Riley has just improved, and it's a 15.4 that he's been able to set. So he moves up to 3rd place. Andrei Chenkovan 5/10 up, and he could be genuinely taking pole here by over a second ahead of Ethan Shackleton. He did it in the first runs ahead of Daniel Riley by almost exactly 9/10 of a second. He might be extending that advantage here now as out of the final corner, putting the power down, the pedal to the metal, and it's going to be a 14.3, and that is an unbelievable lap.
Yeah, and that is pretty much the exact same time as what he did in my league on Saturday. So Andrei Chenkovan proving that it was not a fluke and that his pace here is absolutely genuine. He also very nearly won the race. Just unfortunately, he got a puncture on the last lap, so he was unable to win the race, and a Haas driver ended up winning it in the end.
Well, we'll see what happens this evening. Of course, the drivers will know, those who did that league at least, will know what is going to happen on this circuit, how long you can take tyres, and of course, all data is good data. As Dan Riley across the line once again to start his next push lap. 5 minutes on the board. This may well be his final one unless he gets a move on right now. And I think it's going to be very tight as to whether he's going to be able to get another lap in. But if this is his final run, he has to absolutely nail it, riding the curbs just a little bit in the first sector, not pushing it too hard. But has he come out of the other end of it positively? Yes, he has. 0.034 up is the Mercedes, and just running out onto the exit curbing once again. You have to use every single curb on this circuit pretty much. And, well, there's one that you are allowed to ignore, but this is where you cannot. You have to throw the car in and somehow keep it valid. That's exactly what Dan Riley's done now. Down the hill, braking zone, where you have to turn and brake at the same time, which is very, very dangerous and very, very easy to slip, but Dan Riley hasn't done it now. This is where most laps are going to go to pot into this chicane, but Riley, out of the other end of it, runs over it like it doesn't even exist, and he's gone through the second split time. The third split is ready to come up. He's just got 2 corners to go, and is Dan Riley going to make a challenge for these top 2 spots on the grid? And of course, Andrei Cenkovan's lap was absolutely incredible, a 14.372. Shackleton with a 15.3, but Dan Riley realising that he's probably not going to get another lap in while the track develops. He's actually decided to dive back into the pit lane and try once again.
Yeah, I also think, not necessarily to do with whether he gets another lap in or not, I also think he probably lost quite a lot of time in that final sector. The way he rode that curb on the double left-handers just didn't look very good. It just looked like the car, he scrubbed the time on the curb. So whether or not I'm right, I don't know, but that's just what it looked like from my point of view.
Yes, we'll see what happens into the final runs and hope that he's able to hook up the car as much as he possibly can into the final runs. And of course, we will see what ends up happening. Bertwelly is the first driver out on the circuit. Chenkovan decided that he's done what all that he can, and a 14.3 is what he's going to do. Is actually Benjamin D has left the league, which is interesting, and maybe he's retired from league racing. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it certainly looks like he has. And, well, we were supposed to get 2 new drivers tonight. We've only got 1 so far, and it's going to be Bertwelly, who is the driver in 6th place for now. And, of course, he's invalidated on his lap in the first sector. He was up, though, by a 10.5. So still time to find for everybody on this circuit into their final runs.
Yeah, and I actually do have more on why Benjamin D left the league. It's basically as simple as he can't really make the race times anymore because his sister goes to bed at that time. He's got a much younger sister than him, and his sister goes to bed at APC times. And because he's on a Logitech G920, his wheel is very, very loud. G920s are not particularly known for being the quietest wheels, so that is why he left.
Well, there we go then. Of course, ever informant, Owen, and of course, it's great to have you back as well. Our final runs are about to begin. Stuart Towers will be the first one to do so. He found 4/10 on his previous lap time, taking him up to a 15.8 as lots of cars coming out of the pits, and there's actually contact coming out of the pits. It wasn't Burt, but it was Daniel Riley. Riley has made contact with one of the McLarens. I think that might be a wheel issue there, and is it for... It's for Connor. So I'm not sure what's happened for Connor here, but he's made contact with Dan Riley, and as they were coming out of the pits, so potentially a wheel issue. Not sure. It doesn't look like a wheel issue at this point. Maybe he just wasn't paying attention, pure and simple, as he was coming out of the pits. But that's potentially going to be looked at by the stewards. I'm not sure, but that is very, very, very detrimental to both him and Dan Riley's preparations, and actually he might not be able to get round to the final corner to set his lap. But speaking of it, Burt Welly is in that second sector, and he's up in that first sector significantly, not pushing it too far over the curbing this time, but he might have his teammate for company right ahead of him. Dan Riley is heading through the chicane now, and Burt's lost 2/10 in that second sector, so dare I say it, this is going to be the end of his qualifying, and he's going to peak with a 16.0.
Yeah. Also, Dan Riley has a bit of damage from that incident with Connor, so I don't think he is going to get another lap in. He most likely will peel in. No, he doesn't actually, so he is going to go for another, but it's pretty much probably not going to be faster.
Yeah, most likely it's not going to be faster at all. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't go faster, just because of the way that, you know, that end plate can affect you so much at Imola, and you can already see how much he's struggling and how much he's trying to throw the car into every single one of the corners. He's done so well so far to get to a 15.4 in the first place, but dare I say it, he's not going to be improving on that and running incredibly wide. Yep, he's not going to be improving as the checkered flag is waved. And Dan Riley parks up on the side of the circuit. He's going to be fuming. Shackleton is going to be the first one to set a lap time after Stuart Tower did not improve. Shackleton was improving, but it wasn't enough to take pole position away, and he gets a 14.8. He moves up into that second place, or he actually holds that second place. Paul Garung improving by 0.3 of a second in the first two sectors. Is this going to be enough to leapfrog him ahead of Dan Riley, who of course had that misfortune in the first sector on his outlap on the pit exit line? With Connor, it's going to be an improvement, and it is going to be enough to beat Dan Riley, so that's going to disappoint the Mercedes driver significantly. Now Kyle Stewart Wood, final couple of corners, he's found 4/10 on that lap, so there was a lot of time to be found. And is he going to be beating Burt up to the line? It's going to be a 15.9, so indeed he is going to be beating Burt. Now Kyle, or Connor even, of course, involved with that incident. It was futile as he is invalidated on the circuit. It's Luca Seracini around the final couple of corners. What is he going to be able to do? Is it going to be an improvement, as that's going to be Dan Riley up to the line and not improving? Luca around the final corner, he's going to put the power down as much as he can. He's going to throw himself into the pits last minute, and that's going to be the end of our qualifying session with... It's a Ferrari front row lockout, so a very, very, very good performance from them. And, well, the Ferraris will be starting 1-2 in Italy.
Yeah, a perfect scenario for Ferrari, considering, well, their closest championship contender in Mercedes have one of their fastest driver missing today, of course, Stephen Snell not being here, and championship leader, most importantly. So this is a great opportunity for the two Ferrari drivers of Andrea Chenkovan and Ethan Shackleton to capitalise and potentially extend their constructors' lead by quite a margin.
Yes, it's a great opportunity for them, and Racing Bull's obviously falling off, so it's going to be simply going to be Mercedes who are ready to challenge him. I think that's going to be the case throughout the whole season, Mercedes challenging the Ferraris at the top. But Andrea Chenkovan taking pole position away, over 5/10 ahead of Shackleton, who in himself is only just under 5/10 ahead of Paul Garung in third place, showing pace that we haven't seen so far this year from the Aston Martin. Dan Riley in that fourth position, not able to get a final time on the board. Stuart Towers in that fifth place. Then it is going to be Jack Weaver in sixth, Kyle Stewart Woodard, Burt Welly, then it's Connor Stewart Woodard and Lucas Erasini rounding out the top 10, with the only driver left going to be Brian Moore, who got a 17.6, so a second off of Seracini. But, well, Andrea Chenkovan's lap looking absolutely dominant.
Yeah, a fantastic lap from Andrea Chenkovan, but something quite weird to report here, both Dan Riley and Connor think that it is their own fault. So Dan Riley originally messaged saying, "Sorry, I think that's my fault," and then Connor replied with, "Oh, I don't know. I thought it was my fault." So neither one of them seems to know really what happened.
Yeah, it just felt as though neither of them were paying much attention coming out of the pit lane. Is the verdict on that, I think. And well,
So
it's as long as they're happy with it, that's fine.
So I think we can chalk it down to play stupid games, get stupid prizes. Then yes.
Yes, just not paying attention, and that is completely their own fault. So that's absolutely fine. But we're gonna get ready. We're gonna get ready to get underway here in Imola. Who's your prediction for the race victory?
I'm gonna go with, after seeing what he did at Imola on Saturday, Andrea Chenkovan, purely because first of all he didn't get a penalty, which is something at Imola is almost a guarantee. Secondly, his pace was absolutely fantastic right up until he got that puncture. And thirdly, he's just a man you can never count out of a race win.
No, it's well. I don't. To be fair, I don't think you can count any of these drivers out for a race win. Just the quality that they show every single week, and we're going to get ready to get underway very shortly. Of course, our championship leader is currently. It's currently Stephen Snell, but not racing this evening. Ethan Shackleton is taking that mantle, and if he finishes ahead of, I believe finishes ahead of ninth place, he's going to take that position away, potentially even finishing in that ninth place, and then it'll come back to count back. But he won't do that. He'll finish higher up than that. Andrew Chenkovan, third place, hoping to take that one away. 3 drivers split by just the 8 points. And Dan Riley not too far off as well. Of course, Benjamin D leaving the league, unfortunately, so he won't be improving on his performances. Everybody has points. Every one of the 13 drivers that has appeared this season has points. And we have 11 of the... Well, we've got another one appearing tonight in Burtwelly, and we've got 14 drivers. Well, we will have 14 drivers on the graphic by the end of this evening, and everybody hopefully will be scoring those points, unless Bert doesn't finish in the points. So unless Bert finishes last or does not finish at all, but that's going to be something that we're going to have to wait and see as to what they're going to do. Imola is going to be a one-stop strategy. I think it's the longest pit lane in terms of the time spent on the F1 calendar. So one stop is going to be the strategy to go for. Whether they go for the mediums or the hards first is something that we're going to have to wait and see. We can have a cheeky sneak preview. Everyone so far is on the mediums, so it's going to be simply mediums, hards, or potentially even mediums. Wait for a safety car and then switch to hards. But of course, we don't get many safety cars in this league, so that's not something you can bank on, unlike other leagues. And so I don't think that you can count on one of those to make your strategy work. But yeah, the drivers are going to get ready very shortly, and then we're going to be underway. Well, as soon as I say that, the formation lap gets underway. Andrea Chenkovan keen right off the line to get going.
Yeah, and something to note, I've done a couple of races this game at Imola, and if I remember correctly, most people went for the 2-stop purely because tyre wear is so high at Imola. A 1-stop is possible, but on both stints, if you want to make it work, you're going to be into puncture range, potentially. So I think 2-stop could be the favoured strategy here today, purely because it's so difficult to pull that 1-stop off due to how the tyres degrade.
Yes, it's... well, I mean, I say 1-stop. I come from a world of esports where all the drivers are, of course, pros. This is the Almost Pro Championship, so not quite at that level yet. So maybe we will be seeing 1-stop or 2-stop even. The last time I tried a 1-stop at Imola, my tyres exploded 2 laps from the end. So we'll see. Actually, to be honest, they didn't explode 2 laps from the end. They exploded on the final lap, but 3 of them just went kaput at once, if I remember correctly. And that was potentially one of the most interesting races I've ever been involved in, because I was way out of the points. I actually got the most stupid penalty I've ever got in my life, and I left the league after that. But I ended up getting a stupid penalty. I'll probably show it later if we have a particularly dull race. And then my tyres were cooked the whole race. Stayed out, didn't work. But that was my last experience of the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix.
By any chance, did you get the penalty for driving on dangerously high tyre wear tyres? Because that is something I've seen people get pens for, and I just don't get why.
Nope, not at all. It was actually I lost control into the the section with the downhill braking zone. I lost control just before that,
Yes.
and I just got I lost control, went across the track, and someone went flying into me. But we will go back to that story later, because we will go to this story, another chapter being written in the Almost Pro Championship season, and that chapter is only 5 lights away. And the action's underway. Andrea Chenkovan is going to get off to a very, very strong start, but it's a poor start from Ethan Shackleton, who gets bogged down. Dan Riley is going to pull into that second place, and Paul Garung into third, but Paul might be under pressure from Stuart Towers, who's going to send it to the inside of Shackleton. Can he get through? Yes, he can, but that's going to be at the detriment to Kyle, who gets pushed off the circuit, and Burt Welly, who gets pushed off even further, and he's down to the bottom of the field. A dramatic opening sector ends with Andrea Chenkovan in the lead, Dan Riley in second, Paul Garung in third. It's going to be Shackleton dropping down to fourth.
Yeah, and one thing to note, all the chaos of that first sector has let Dan Riley and Andrea Chenkovan pull a gap of 1.5 seconds to Paul Garung in third. So can these two now work together and extend that gap?
We will see what they can do. It's a 1.8 second gap at the moment, so that is perfect. I did see some damage as well further down the field, so it'll be interesting to see who that damage belongs to and whose carbon fibre is still splayed out before turn 1 around this circuit. But as it stands, it's Andrea Chenkovan and Dan Riley leading the way. Dan Riley 1.1 behind Chenkovan, so he might not even get DRS when it's enabled on the next lap. That could be absolutely vital for Chenkovan, and he might go home to take a dominant victory here today. His pace so far has been so strong, and the fastest lap of the race pumped in on those medium tyres, a 19.2, and that is a very good start. Everybody on those mediums apart from Jack Weaver and Burt Welly, who's of course going to have to reevaluate his strategy now, as Shackleton maybe looks to the inside of Paul Garung. No such luck, so he stays in behind in the Ferrari and still looks to pressure the Aston Martin. He wants to get that DRS.
Yeah, and for your information, the damage on that lap 1 belonged to the car of Connor Stewart Woodard. So he has lost his right-hand end plate, so that is going to have a huge impact on car performance, especially in Sector 1.
I've just been informed that we're going to have a mixed conditions race here today, so the drivers are going to have to just think about their strategies just that little bit more. It's no longer that easy or easy 2-stop even, or even an attempted easy 1-stop, as Carl Stewart would have already. 3-second time penalty for corner cutting. He's struggling with the track limits on this circuit, and Lucas Heracini is able to take advantage and make his way through on the McLaren, who's now under pressure from his own teammate. 2 very different McLaren liveries, and you can see them both on show here today. Kyle with the silver McLaren, and Connor going for the more plain, more traditional McLaren as they head around the final couple of corners, split by just a 0.3 of a second. Chenkovan 18-0 after the first 2 laps, and well, he's 2.4 ahead of Dan Riley, who in himself is 2.3 ahead of Paul Garung, so that is a huge gap to have eked out, and Ethan Shackleton has realised this and decided he needs to get a move on, and he's passed Paul Garung down the main straight.
Yeah, and if we're going to have a mixed conditions race, that might just swing the race in favour of Jack Weaver and Burt Welly if the weather hits at the right time for them. The medium pit window is about lap 12 or 13. So if we get weather around lap 17 or 18, the hard tyre runners will be laughing.
They certainly will, and I think those medium runners are already going to be trying to conserve those tyres. Andrea Chenkovan especially up at the top of the field, and I think Dan Riley as well is going to have the opportunity, as that is a huge gap eked out by Shackleton on that last lap ahead of Paul Garung as well. So I'm not sure what's happened to the pace of the rest of the field, but the top 3 look absolutely sensational. It looks like it's S-tier pace at the moment, Chenkovan, then it's A-tier Riley, and then it's B-tier Shackleton, and then everybody else is hanging in around the D-tier, E-tier, something along those lines, as Burt makes his way past Connor, and that is not ideal for the McLaren, especially considering the wing damage he's got so far. But with how long they have to spend in the pit lane, he's deciding that staying out is going to be a smarter option. but yeah, we head down the straight once again. Stuart Towers is going to be passed. Paul Garung, but Paul gets back through. So the fight beginning to ignite for that 4th place. Is Jack Weaver going to invite himself into the battle as well? I'm not sure. He looks at the moment like he's a bit pacier than the other two, so he might be able to get through, but those hard compound tyres that he's got on are going to give him a disadvantage, as he's just about not going to get as much grip out of the corners. Owen, have we lost you by any chance?
Sorry, I was trying to get my microphone to work. My mic was having a little bit of a moment. Mate, there was a weird. I was losing audio in my headphones for some reason, so I was trying to fix it.
What a tight moment that is, by the way, from Stuart and from Jack Weaver down into the chicane, and it's going to be Stuart that comes out on top of it, but Jack Weaver looking very quick.
Yeah, Jack Weaver's pace definitely looks better than 6th place at the moment. And he, of course, has Luca hanging around in a 7th place at the moment. Luca's pace actually so far has been actually pretty good considering how awful he said he felt for this race. You know, he's running less assists than he previously was, so it's not been a bad performance from him so far.
Yes, not a bad performance. We'll see what he's going to be able to do as Kyle. More penalties and, well, he's got one for corner cutting, and now he's got one for multiple warnings, so really struggling with the track limits, as Shackleton has got past Dan Riley, and he's up into that 2nd place, so very, very strong pace from him, and I think he's just jumped past Dan Riley into that A tier, whereas Dan bumped down to B tier, but still 3.3 seconds ahead of the car in 4th place, ahead of Paul Garung, who is himself under pressure from Stuart Tower, and from Jack Weaver as well. But is past Luca Seracini, the Mercedes, starting to show pace.
As I was, oh, and there you are. So I was bigging up Luca a sector and a half ago, saying his pace was pretty good. 2 corners later, he has a huge snap of oversteer, and then 3 corners later has another, which allows Bert to get past him.
Yeah, well, that commentator's curse at the finest, and Bert is now 2.3 in behind Jack Weaver. That snap might have actually cost him and everybody else behind a significant amount of time, because they won't be in the DRS of the cars in front, so that's a huge disadvantage that they'll get, so unfortunate. But Stuart Towers now pulls alongside and ahead of Paul Garung. Is Jack Weaver going to be close enough to do the same thing? No, he's not. And so he stays behind 4th, 5th and 6th are starting to fight, and actually he tries to go for it. It's a huge lunge. Is it going to pay off for Jack Weaver? Yes, it is. He's up to 5th place, and that pretty much came out of nowhere.
Fantastic move from Jack Weaver, and now he's only less than a second behind Stuart Towers, who is in 4th place. So as I said a couple of laps ago, Jack Weaver's pace was better than 6th place, and he is proving it now.
He certainly is. This is very, very strong pace at the moment, and these drivers will see what they're going to be able to do throughout the next few laps on this racetrack. Of course, 26 laps to go, and changeable conditions, so wet tyres and wet setups coming into play. Do you think these drivers would have already chosen those wet setups already, or do you think that they're just, some might be going for dry setups and hoping, some might have gone for something a mix of the both?
I think if it's mixed conditions, I personally would go for a mix of the 2 setups. So I would probably, depending on when the weather hits, have a more dry setup, probably. I would maybe adjust the wings ever so slightly, go a couple of clicks higher. But I think mostly I'd have a dry setup on, because although the weather is getting, the clouds are getting very, very dark, we're already nearly a third of the way through this race. So give it a little bit longer, and a dry setup would definitely be worth it.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how long it takes the drivers to come out, and well, the rain to come out as well, as the drivers are just, well, they're continuing on the circuit at the moment, as that is a huge snap, but that might be an even bigger snap for Luca Seracini, and indeed it is. So you were bigging him up a couple of laps ago, saying he's running less assists and doing well. He's just spun around, and he's just gone on the grass again, and that's what happens when you've got, I believe that's no ABS. You just, when you tap a tire on the grass, you're just gone.
Yeah, 100%. No ABS actually feels, in my opinion, easier this game than it was last game. Not to say that it's easy, because it's 100% not. But it just feels a little bit more like driving with ABS than it did before.
Yes, it's one of the. So I've not actually played much of this F1 game, so I don't actually have much first-hand experience. I'm more playing real games now, or real racing games at least. But it's all huge slide for Luca, and that's certainly not ideal. And I'll switch off from him now because he's clearly struggling a lot. But it's one of those games where the physics don't quite seem real. Every time I switch back to it, I'm kind of surprised by how easy, not easy it is to turn, but it's like easy to turn, but also at the same time easy to lose it. So it's kind of that fine balance you have. It's a bit more gamey than everything else, as that's off the circuit for Daniel Riley. He's spun around. He's the latest driver to get caught by the curbs, and it looks like just at the end of the first sector, he's spun around using that curb. Either that, or he struggled and switched onto the gravel for just a moment, and that is not ideal for the Mercedes, as he's off the circuit, and he has dropped down, momentum gone. And, well, that's allowed Shackleton to open up that gap and Jack Weaver to be promoted to the podium positions.
Yeah, unfortunate for Dan Riley, but that does open up the opportunity for potentially the two Mercedes, if Dan Riley can catch up, to work together as they are currently running in 6-7 together.
They're running where? No, but he's going to go around the outside now of Paul Garung, and he's going to ruin that joke. And, well, maybe he's not, as squeezed out he is by Paul Garung. And, well, Paul is able to hold on to P5, but potentially a slightly dirty move there just to hold on to it. And Burt is going to try and get back past him. He manages to hold on to that DRS. A very, very lucky man to hold on to the DRS. Darrell is into the pit. Is he going to make a switch of a front wing? Has he taken damage at some point? Because that would suggest contact. No, he's not. He's just switching to the hard. So maybe that changeable conditions prediction from before is not actually going to come to light.
I more think it's to do with tyre wear. I said tyre wear here is extremely high, which it is, and if you're not particularly kind on your tyres, which, let's be honest, in this F1 game, pretty much everyone is not very kind on their tyres, other than esports drivers. So if you're not very kind on your tyres, 100% this would be about the pit window for a two-stop race.
Well, we'll see. I think that maybe Dan Riley is just hoping that the rain is going to stay off for now, or it's coming very, very late on in the race. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but it's going to be a Ferrari 1-2 as it stands. And, well, it does look like it's getting very murky here in Imola, as into the pits comes Luca Serafini. What does he switch on to? He switched onto a set of the medium. So two-stop strategies are being employed. And I think, personally, depending on when the rain is, the hard compound tyre was the right choice. Potentially they'll be able to stave it off. Or, if the rain comes right at the very end of the race, they could actually play this into their favour by doing one stop, seeing how long they can make the tyres last. Of course, as I said, the tyres could last potentially until the last lap. And then they can switch onto a set of inters. And of course, we will see what these drivers and what these teams decide to do towards the end, as Kyle and Brian are going to come into the pit and out of the pits once again. They're definitely committing to that two-stop. Brian on a set of the mediums and Kyle on a set of the hards. They're going to be close together as they come out back onto the circuit. And Kyle is going to try and fight with Brian here, I think, and hold on to that position there. I know he's on the harder tyres, so it's going to take a bit of time to warm up, but it always feels like Kyle in this battle will be the faster driver.
Yeah, definitely. Although he obviously has the disadvantage of being on those hard compound tyres, which in these more overcast conditions are going to take a couple of laps to get up to temperature. They always take sort of a lap or so to get up to temperature, but in these interchangeable sort of weather conditions, I suppose, if the weather were to hit soon, his tyres would be stone cold for him. He'd be finding himself pitting earlier than everyone as he picks up another 3-second time penalty to take his total to 9 now.
Yeah, that is very much not ideal, and that is where he's really struggled this evening to keep it on the circuit and keep it on the black stuff, as Shackleton and Towers into the pit lane, out of the pit lane, with sets of mediums booted on, and 3-second time penalty for Luca Serafini, and that is just racking his total up too. He's got 6 seconds, Kyle has 9, and then Jack Weaver, Paul Garung and Connor Stewart-Woodard all have 3 seconds worth of penalties. Cenkovan, Burt, Shackleton, Towers, Riley and Brian Moore managing to stay penalty free here today. How crucial do you think that's going to be?
Well, staying penalty free, a circuit like Imola can define your race. You know, you could, if we get a late safety car, you could finish on track 9th place and you could end up getting elevated to 3rd purely because you've kept it clean. So 100%, as I say that, our race leader gets a 10-second penalty.
Yeah, 10-second penalty for coming into the pit lane too fast. That is a huge error made by Andrea Cenkovan, and that is very much not ideal. I think he might, he might serve it later on into the race, but for now, that is going to completely swap it on its head. And I'd say that probably throws Ethan Shackleton into the favourite to win this one here, as Ethan's just going to have a great opportunity here to see what he can do in terms of taking that race victory. But yeah, Andrea Cenkovan, huge mistake, as that's going to be Ethan past Connor, as Connor is into the pit lane. But that is a huge moment in this race, and I'm not sure whether Andrew is going to be able to recover.
Yeah, I think if he gets another penalty, that will be, you know, his race potentially over. But something to keep an eye on is the gap is not that far off being 10 seconds. Cenkovan only needs another sort of just under 2.5 seconds, and he's got the 10-second gap. So I wouldn't count Andrea Cenkovan out of this one yet.
So what you're saying is showboating and getting that penalty intentionally, right? No, but it's
yeah.
I mean, the pace that he showed so far.
Style points.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But, well, I mean, it's worth it. I think, potentially, it might be worth it to speed into the pit lane, but if you think you're that much quicker than everybody else, to showboat, potentially, or something along those lines. I'm just trying to get the information to see whether he actually sped into the pit lane, because, well, of course, he is one of those drivers who does stream his point of views on this. Oh dear, that's actually a very embarrassing way of picking up that penalty, because what Andrew has managed to do is he's managed to slow down, but he's managed to slow down like very quickly, and so he's sped up again to go into the pits without losing too much time, and he's sped over the pit line. So he actually did go slow enough. So he's lost the time from going slow enough for a while, but then he sped back up to go into the pit lane.
Really unfortunate for him there, but equally a mistake that a driver can make, and I think for his second stop he'll be a lot more careful than he was on that first one, as he now tries to go down the inside on Paul Garung. Paul Garung shutting that one down completely. Yeah,
who needs to be careful when you're Andrea Cenkovan, as Cenkovan pulling to that outside once again. He tried to go past, not once but twice, Paul Garung in that second sector, where you barely see overtakes, and now he's going to get the opportunity to do a much more traditional one. Better exit out of the chicane, and that's Cenkovan up into the podium position once again, and ready to chase down Burt for P2. And, well, Jack Weaver, I believe, is in the pit lane this lap. So, well, it'll be P1 that he's chasing Burt down for, as we're almost at the halfway point of this race now. Lap 14 of 32. We've got 2 more laps till we reach 50% of this race done. And, well, it's been, barring the 10-second penalty, it's been all Cenkovan. As Shackleton is going to get past Jack Weaver, and he's up into 4th place. So it's been all Cenkovan, but also, you could argue it's been the case that it's been all Ferrari as well.
Yeah, 100%. But there is somebody who can spoil that party. Burt is in the race lead at the moment and on those hard tyres. Depending on what his tyre wear is like, I wonder if he could potentially stay out until that weather hits, if it does hit. Of course, we're not the weathermen. We don't have a forecast on us, so we cannot, unfortunately, tell you that specifically. But looking at the sky, it does make me think that some weather is going to hit in the next sort of 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, it potentially can, but it's also looked like that all race long, so it's brewing and it's waiting. And on this game, I think more than any other, to be fair, and to give props to EA for a second, they have been able to create changeable conditions. So what they've done on previous years is it's been very dry to very wet, or very wet to very dry, vice versa. This year it's a little bit more up in the air. Sometimes it will take a very long time, as Cenkovan does take the lead of the race with the DRS off of Burt. But I mean, that's giving them props for something that should be standard. So in fairness, It's not necessarily the most innovative change, but it's, we can give them props for something that they've done positive, and that is certainly something they've done positive, adding a realistic dynamic to the game, as that is going to be, I believe that might be Lucas Ericini having issues once again in the second sector, and indeed it was, and indeed he's been able to get going once again, but Chenkovan very, very quick on the circuit, and currently ready to fight as we've got a couple more moves with DRS. Is going to be Kyle up into 7th ahead of Connor in 8th, and Brian in 9th as Paul Garon comes into the pit lane. Is that Paul's second pit stop?
Paul's. Yes, it is. Yeah, hang on. Let me just. No, it is his first. Sorry, it is his first. No, it is. Yeah, it's his first pit stop. The only person who is yet to pit. Everyone else has done one pit stop. The only person who has not yet is Bert.
And Bert, of course, in second place at the moment, as Lucas Ericini is currently being lapped. I believe it's just reset to track. So really struggling with keeping it on the black stuff here today, and well, I don't think he is going to be very happy with his performances. But that's what happens when you make a switch onto new settings, onto all these sorts of things. It will take you a while to adjust. As well, we might be having a move here for this here 4th place. It's going to be Jack Weaver getting through with the DRS on Stuart Towers and up into 4th place. And well, I think there will be some people who will be upset at Lucas Ericini for continuing on, and why not just retire in the pits when clearly the race conditions aren't going your way. But I would disagree with that. I respect the ability to keep going, and I respect the perseverance, and you're not going to get any better at this game unless you try, and that is exactly what he's trying to do. He's trying to, it's exposure therapy himself to getting less, having less assists on, and at the moment, while it doesn't seem to be working, we could be watching back on this race in maybe 2 months' time when he's become the quickest driver because of the fact that he's gotten rid of the assists, and he'll be laughing.
Yeah, and I mean, as you said, the quickest way to learn is by just driving it. So if you're having a rubbish race, just carry on driving. You can learn. And the thing is, all he needs is one person to crash, and he's got a point. So at this point, he may as well just stay in the race, because either way, it's a win-win. He gains some valuable knowledge about how to drive this game, or if someone were to crash, he gets a point. So, it's a win-win either way.
Yeah, it certainly is, and well, that's going to be something that we'll see as he now gets out of the way of the McLarens. He's running off the circuit, just trying to avoid everybody as they're coming through to lap him, and he's playing it with all due respect. He's just trying to get out of the way of everybody and give everybody the opportunity to continue their race as if he was never there, which is, a perfectly respectable thing to do as we cross over the line for the 17th time and start lap number 17 in this race. We've got Chenkovan with, of course, his 10 seconds of penalty at the top. It's Jack Weaver in 4th place with his 6, which are dropping down behind Stuart Towers as he's managed to build up a gap on the Williams of just over a second. Then Dan Riley in 6th place and Carl Stewart Wooden. He did have 15, and he's now moved up to 18 seconds worth of penalties. And Connor Stewart will be just the 3 in behind him. I think if we do get the opportunity to speak to him at the end of the race, which I'm not sure whether we will or not, we won't be very happy with his performance at all in any way, shape or form, as he's just not been able to keep it on the black stuff. And that is the number one thing you need to do in racing, especially in Formula racing, where the margins are so tight and you have to keep it on that circuit. But yeah, we'll see whether he does join us this evening, and then we'll ask him about that one. But it's going to be very, very, very interesting as we're on lap 18 of this race. Chenkovan being so quick, he has now opened up that gap to 10 seconds.
Yeah, and the thing is about Kyle, he's got to be careful, because disqualification number is 24, I believe. It's either 24 or 27 seconds. So if he's not careful, he's in risk of getting DSQ'd. Which, funny. Of course, he really doesn't. He really doesn't want that to happen. So my point about Lucas Ericini, all of a sudden, maybe becomes a little bit more believable.
Yeah, I mean, well, that would be funny. That would be really funny if he got disqualified, but
not for Kyle.
Obviously not for him. No, I was going to say not for him at all. But of course, we'll have to wait and see whether he's going to do that. He's got 18 seconds, so he's got like how many is that? That's 18 times off the track of leeway. So hopefully shouldn't have any problems. If he does, then, I mean, I hate to say it, but that would be a skill issue. And he is going to have to really, really reevaluate it. This is like when I raced around Imola in that Mercedes, you know. I just couldn't keep it. I couldn't keep it in a straight line. But anyway, he's not driving a Mercedes. He's got no excuse. 3-second time penalty for Connor. The wrong Stewart would have picked up a penalty. But he's now passed his brother, and he's up in 7th place as well. We see Ethan Shackleton into the pit lane. Is that his second pit stop?
Yes, it is Ethan Shackleton's second pit stop. So it is a 2-stop, and that does make me wonder if the weather is going to hit much later in the race, like final 4 or 5 laps or something. Because I don't think at this point it'd be worth making a stop. Of course, Ethan Shackleton was on those medium tyres, so if he couldn't make it to the rain, then he would have to stop again. But I think if the weather's going to hit soon, everyone on the hards will be staying out till that point.
Yes, it's well, I wouldn't be surprised if they do just try and stretch it to that stint and see what they can do, Kyle especially. But I mean, Kyle now coming under pressure from the car in behind, and well, Connor putting the pressure on the car in front, Dan. And well, these 4 drivers together on the circuit split by just 2 seconds, and we could be seeing fighting here very, very shortly as Lucas Erosini off the track. He's been that the second time, and I believe that time, yeah, he has called it quits. He might have crashed into the wall, I'm not sure, but that is going to be Lucas Erosini out of the race, down to 10, and everybody will now get points.
Yeah, and by the way, Bert Welly has been on the exact same set of tyres now. Well, this is going to be his 20th lap on those hards. That is crazy. So massive props to him for getting those hards all the way. The question is now, are they going to make it to the weather, and is it actually worth, you know, extending his stop this long?
Oh, it's certainly worth a gamble, especially with the way the start of his race went. As we head down the straight, the 2 Stewart Wood is side by side, 1 slightly off of the circuit, but it doesn't matter as Carl Stewart Wood. Actually, it does matter as he sends himself off the circuit, rejoins behind Paul Garung, and that has cost him a lot of time, and well, it's not allowed him anything in terms of leeway, as now he drops behind Paul. Tried to get back through, but found himself just dropping in behind. Open up the opportunity though for Ethan Shackleton to get through, as Connor is also, he's dropped behind Paul Garung, and these 5 drivers now are together on the circuit, split by not much at all, and so this fight could ignite. It did on the last lap as Kyle tried to get through, but now it's the turn of, well, the likes of Ethan Shackleton, who's just got past Connor, to have his go.
Yeah, and the thing about this is he is on significantly newer tyres, so he is going to have a huge advantage at this phase of the race, as Bert now finally does pit into the pit lane for a new set of mediums.
That's certainly interesting at this point in the race. Of course, the mediums potentially able to go to the end.
Yes, 100% at this point. Andrea Chenkovan at the weekend did 15 laps on the mediums and then got a puncture on the last lap, so they'll definitely do 12 laps 100%. If he's just done 20 on a set of hards, he can definitely do 12 on the mediums.
Yes, well, but making that one stop work potentially, we'll have to wait and see, as well, it's going to be potentially very close between Ethan Shackleton and
sorry,
in that 3rd place. What?
Dan Riley's on inters. Dan Riley's pitted for intermediates. What's he doing?
Well, I mean, again, it's worth a gamble. Everything is worth a gamble at this point, because you're going to get points regardless, as well, Paul Garung continues to defend against Ethan Shackleton. You're going to get points regardless, so it is really worth a gamble and worth an attempt to see what you can do, and especially if you've had a poor race compared to your standards like Dan Riley has, he'll be hoping to see what he can do just that little bit better with those inters on, as that's a 3-second time penalty for Shackleton, trying to push himself into contention and into range of overtaking Paul Garung. And well, speaking of into range, that is what Dan Riley thinks is going to be on the circuit very shortly. I hope you enjoyed that pun, but we'll see. Keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on that Mercedes as he continues through, and more specifically, how much time he gains.
He won't gain any because A, there's been no spot of rain, and secondly, look at the sky. Go on board with him. It's in parts, it's like clear sky. I don't think there's going to be a spot of rain at all in this race now, with how the sky looks. So what's he doing? He's lost 11 seconds already, and he's off the track.
Potentially, he might have chosen the wrong tyres. We'll get the opportunity to debrief with him at the end of the race. He's going to come in, no, he's going to stick it out on these tyres, and well, this could be going badly for his championship challenge for the Mercedes, and well, 9th place at the moment is certainly not ideal, but well, we'll see what he's able to do, as Andrei Chenkovan has now lapped him, and he comes through to, well, he's going to lap Connor, and it's just been incredible, his pace so far. I mean, we talk about the other drivers, but his pace has been such that he's been able to catch up to not only drivers who've had issues like Saraceni and Dan Riley, but also drivers like Connor who haven't had problems. And yeah, I mean, now as we see Brian Moore get through on Dan Riley even, then we can really reflect on this day for Dan Riley as a gamble worth taking, but certainly not one that's paid off. And I think if he was going to take it, he should have taken it earlier, but of course he didn't, and now he's left to rue the consequences of the actions, which has put him down in P10, and now out of the DRS he is so much slower than Brian Moore as it stands. A 3-second time penalty for Kyle. He's getting closer.
Yeah, there's only one thing I can think of when it comes to Dan Riley, and I'm not sure if it's a thing in this game, but a couple of games ago, in 23 and 24, there was a glitch where it would be raining on your screen, it'd be intermediate conditions, and on everybody else's, it would be bone dry. So I'm not sure whether that's what's happening here, or if he's just on the inters for the fun of it. I really honestly have no idea, but that is literally the only thing I can think of.
Well, Dan Riley there getting very unlucky with the way his race has gone today. Stuart Tower has gotten past Kyle Stuart Woodard. He's up in 6th place. He's the only penaltyless driver on this field apart from Dan Riley, who of course has other things going against him. Towers has done very well this race, I think, and I think this is sort of more of the pace that we'd be expecting from a former champion, of course. And well, he's 6th place at the moment. He's set to almost gain another, as that's going to be Shackleton past Burt, whose tyres will be absolutely knackered. But yeah, Stuart Towers on track, I think, to take P5, P6, something like that, as Shackleton defends against Burt and solidifies the position. Stuart's done very well, and this fighting is going to help him in gaining those positions up. And towards the end of the race, he could be very happy with the way that his has gone.
And he is on the joint freshest tyres on the grid with joint with Burt. Dan Riley technically has fresher tyres, but he's on the inters and they will be absolutely screaming. So I'm not even going to count him in that argument for freshest tyres on the grid. So Stuart and Burt, both at this phase of the race, have very, very strong tyres, but Ethan Shackleton at the moment just seems to have the measure of Burt Welly, sorry.
Yeah, he certainly does, and well, I mean, I'm not surprised with the way the tyres are as it stands in this race, and but out of the DRS now, and I think it makes sense for him to come into the pit lane potentially on the next lap, and we'll see whether the Mercedes does decide to do that. As someone who has decided to do that, Jack Weaver, who comes in for his 2nd pit stop. 7 laps to go then, and Jack Weaver comes in for the final time, you would imagine. I think we're going to be seeing some drivers try and duke it out to the very end on their older tyres, and Weaver out on a set of the mediums. He's the only driver in and around that range on the mediums, and he's going to try and push. He's only 2.3 in behind Stuart Towers, and this could be P5.
Yeah, and his mediums are going to be so fast now. And I actually do believe, potentially, if he can dispatch of Stuart quickly, he might be able to catch Paul Garung. I mean, he has a 10-lap tyre advantage. So at this phase, he might be able to catch Paul Garung. Whether or not he can pull a 3-second gap on Paul Garung remains to be seen, because he has 3 seconds of penalties more than Paul Garung does.
Yeah, it's well, We'll see, because of course the penalties won't even matter until the final lap, because nobody else is going to come into the pits again, so they're not going to serve it, as Chenkovan and, well, Kyle Stewart-Woodard will be the only drivers who will be forced to serve their penalties, because they've got over 10 seconds worth, and Kyle with 21 seconds worth of penalties. That's an impressive stat. And Chenkovan with only 10, he would be getting all of those removed. And of course, they are only for one incident, so he has not exceeded track limits. Well, I was going to say a single time. Enough for it to warrant him being off and or being with that penalty and dropping him down. It's just been a simple case of that mistake in the pit lane that has really cost him. But 45 seconds ahead of Shackleton, even if it's cost him, it's not going to matter in the grand scheme of things. But Ethan Shackleton now 45. Yes, he is 45 seconds beyond the race lead. He's 1.2 ahead of Burt, and well, he's shown very, very good pace. Championship, I'd say championship driver pace today, and I don't mean the drivers' championship. I think this is the start of where the tide begins to turn. Stephen Snell, of course, not racing today, has provided a huge opportunity for Ferrari, and they've grabbed it with both hands, haven't they?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Andrea Chenkovan is in a different postcode to everyone else at the moment. He's coming through Sector 2 towards Aqua Minerale, and Shackleton is only just starting lap 27. So he is in absolutely Narnia compared to the rest of the grid. But Ferrari's pace today, even Shackleton's pace, he's made that two-stop work compared to Bert's one-stop, and the pace from both of them has been fantastic.
Yeah, it's certainly been very, very good, and it's been an impressive performance, I think it's fair to say, from both the Ferraris, just taking the bit between their teeth and performing very well. Burt, though, has managed to stay within range of Shackleton. He might get the advantage towards the end of the race. He's closing very, very, very slowly at the moment, but I think he might be getting the DRS on the next lap, and that's going to change the tide of this fight with 4 laps left, as well, he'll be able to just get that advantage. But I don't think it would be smart to just take the advantage and go straight as Ethan Shackleton into the wall. We've just been talking about how good the Ferrari has been, and he's just spun out of the exit of the corner, and that's just cost him a podium, I'd say.
I think we've just cost him the podium there. That is the second time in this race that one of us has been bigging a driver up. Well, both times have been me, technically, and then a couple of laps later, something has happened to them. So I think we should just shut up from now, in all honesty.
Oh, that sounds like a plan to me. But yeah, I mean, it's been very, very, very good, I think, from the drivers at the top. And despite that mistake from Shackleton, which he's not going to come into the pits to fix, despite that mistake from Shackleton, he has been very good, and he's going to deserve everything he gets, which I think will be a lot less than what he would have been hoping for, as he's passed by Paul Garung for that final podium position, and I think it's going to get a hell of a lot worse, as he's 3.4 ahead of Jack Weaver as it stands. But the decision to stay out baffles me.
I think he'd lose more from going in than he would from staying out. I think as he gets a 3-second penalty, right now, the only positions I can see him losing are down to Stewart. I think he'll have the measure of Kyle, considering Kyle has 21 seconds. And then Connor is 10.5 behind Kyle, and he has 3 seconds more than Ethan Shackleton anyway. So I think staying out is probably the smarter idea in the context of his race, and also just maximising the amount of points that he can get today.
Yeah, I mean, I would have taken the gamble just to come into the pits simply because it would have been a great chance for a great chance to see what you can do with no pressure in behind. So of course, Kyle and Connor, as you say, aren't going to provide any pressure, and all they have to fight with is going to be Stuart Tower and Jack Weaver towards the end of the race, and he's going to pick up penalties. But I can also see the other argument, and actually, if you consider it, I can understand why Shackleton has done that, and he's going to drop another position to Jack Weaver. But I think he's going to pick up that 6th place, which wouldn't be the end of the world. But yeah, lap 29 of 32, and I don't think we're in a bad shape in terms of the way this race is shaken out. Burt now in P2 on debut, and I think it's fair to say, even though Stephen Snell's not raced, Bert's done a very good job in what could be a championship fight towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I think Bert has been a very, very good replacement for Stephen in this race, of course. He is in P2, as you said, and he made that one-stop work. Him and Andrea Chenkovan are the only two people who have managed to make that one-stop strategy work. Touch wood, nothing happens. To Andrea Chenkovan after my track record today, I just thought I should say that. But yeah, I think it's been a very, very good debut race from Bert. I look forward to seeing more of him towards the next races of the season.
Yeah, hopefully he makes the decision to become a full-time driver. That would be a very, very, very good call, as he was... At this point in the season, the drivers will be starting to think about the championship, of course, not too much, but I think now is about the time where you can start to think about it, surely.
Fleck on board with Dan Riley, real quick.
Oh, no.
Just look at the tyre he's on now. You go on board with him now.
Is it full wets? Is it softs?
Yes, he's decided to go on to full
Full
wets.
wets, wonderful.
I'm miffed. I'm genuinely miffed.
I'm going to have a look at his POV. I think he might be streaming this, and I'll see what...
I can't find it on YouTube. I've already tried to look, and his channel is showing us having no content. So I don't think he is streaming it.
Weird. Well, hopefully we'll get the opportunity to speak to him come the end of the race.
I hope so.
And then we'll ask him what the hell is going on. But yeah, I mean, it's been very interesting from his perspective as to what's happening. He might be streaming on TikTok. I know he does a bit of content on there, but I'm not sure, as we've got just 2 laps to go. And we've got Andrew Chenkovan in the lead of the race. That's a huge 6-second time penalty from Paul Garung. And we could be coming down to the final few overtakes for this race. As Paul Garung picks up that 3-second time penalty, that means that this is an even playing field, because Jack Weaver, if he would have overtaken before, would have had to build up 3 seconds, but he doesn't. And if he gets through on him, which he's going to try and do now, Paul Garung is not going to allow him the space, but decides eventually to give him the position. So very sporting there. But if Garung hadn't picked up that penalty, then Jack Weaver would have to build up 3 seconds worth of time ahead of the Aston Martin. He doesn't. So I think he might have snatched this podium away at the death.
Yeah, definitely. Jack Weaver, now can he begin to pull away from Paul Garung? Obviously on significantly fresher tyres. I said he might be able to catch Paul Garung, which he has now. So can he blast away and try and, well, protect his podium? He just needs to be careful now. Sorry, Andrea Chenkovan has gone on too soft.
Yes, well, Andrew Chenkovan is going to do incredibly well, he has done incredibly well throughout the entire race as he crosses the line to start the final lap of this Grand Prix. The Ferrari is absolutely dominated, and the opportunity to come into the pits, the longest time he's going to spend in the pit lane on this calendar, and he's just, you know, the fact that he's had the opportunity to do that and come back out in the lead demonstrates the pace advantage he has shown today. The Ferrari has been absolutely dominant. His lap drivers, not only drivers that made mistakes, but drivers that haven't, as we're watching his teammate Ethan Shackleton go around the outside of Paul Garung, who has a half spin and tries to squeeze Shackleton in response, but drops down to 5th place, and he might drop down to 6th. Stuart Towers looking to get involved and looking to get through on the Aston Martin on the final lap of this race, as well, we're just going to watch on, as I don't know if Garung is going to lose this position from here, especially with the way he's been defending. But Stuart Towers doesn't need to take it on track, because he's going to get it off track anyway. But Chenkovan has been so dominant, not only lapping drivers that have had problems, but also drivers who haven't, and that has been the difference between his day and the day of many. As he comes around the final corner, it's Ferrari dominance, it's Tifosi jubilation, as across the line Chenkovan with the fastest lap on the final one is going to take a dominant victory. Daniel Riley will be the second finisher in that final points position in 10th after a very interesting day. It's going to be second for Bert on his debut in the league, and he stakes his claim to be a regular driver. Third then goes to, in the end, it'll be Jack Weaver in that 3rd place. 4th for Ethan Shackleton, and 5th for Paul Garung.
Stuart
But it's
could
going to
be
be
on the
snatched off
podium.
him as
Stuart's on the
Stuart
podium.
Tower is going to get the podium after all the penalties are applied. That's incredible.
I was keeping an eye on that from the start of the lap, but I didn't get a chance to say anything. But yeah, Stuart Towers out of absolutely nowhere has got a podium there. Fantastic stuff for him.
That's unbelievable for Stuart Towers. And I said he was very quick this race. And if you can keep it on the black stuff, I think I asked you this question earlier on about how important it is to keep it on the black stuff. And, well, Stuart gaining, what was that, 4 positions after penalties are applied?
Yeah, he went from 6th to 3rd, so 3 positions. So he will most definitely not be complaining about that.
No, and that is what happens when you keep it on the black stuff. Well, we've got our final results in after all the penalties have been applied from what has been the most shaky circuit of the year in terms of track limits, and I'm not surprised. And it's Andrei Chenkovan on that P1 spot. A very, very well-deserved first place as well, but snatching away second from Ethan Shackleton after one big mistake cost him everything in this race. Stuart Towers in 3rd, snatching it away in the end. Jack Weaver finished there on track, but dropped down to 4th. Shackleton then ended up in 5th, so maximised the points that he could have possibly gotten. And 6th place, well, that was Paul Garung, who defended like a lion the entire race and actually came to blows for him on a couple of occasions. Connor in 7th and Kyle in 8th in what was a very inconspicuous day for the 2 McLarens. 9th for Brian Moore in an equally inconspicuous day, and 10th for Dan Riley after, well, a less than inconspicuous day. Dare I say, it's very conspicuous. Then our final classified driver, of course, a DNF, is going to be Luca Seracini after an unfortunate day for him. But that for the racing action here in Italy, and I'm hoping, we're going to get a lot of drivers, so we're going to get the opportunity to speak to a lot of people. I can't see Kyle in there right now, so what we're going to do is we're going to drag them in from the bottom upwards, and well, we're going to start with our driver who finished in P9, and hopefully he wasn't having a conversation that we've just interrupted. Brian, can you hear us?
Yeah, hello.
Wonderful. Well, if you would like to talk us through that race, and well, specifically from your perspective, we didn't get to see much of it, but we'd be very much appreciative.
It was alright. I mean, I didn't really have much to do with it. I didn't really have much battling to do. I was sort of in a world of my own. Spun it 4 times in the same corner throughout the race, and that was not a highlight of the race at all. Yeah, it was just one of them races where I was just really there to score points.
That's fair enough. And point you did score. I was going to say points, but you ended up with 2, which is not a terrible total to add to your total, which is currently going to be up to 10. Are you happy with the outcome of this race?
I'm fairly happy that I got more points than I was anticipating I'd get. Keeping the fight with Kyle and Connor alive there for P7 in the standings as it is at the minute. So yeah, keeping the fight alive there. It could have been better, but it could have been worse.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, we've got Owen back in the comms box. I know you two are good friends. So Owen, if you've got anything for Brian, then take it away.
We are resuming standard service. No, I do not.
Wonderful. Well, that'll be it from us, Brian, then. But thank you very much for racing today and for joining us in the interview room. And we hope to see you again next time out and picking up decent points once again.
Thank you.
Any points are decent points, of course. And that was 2 that he was able to take home from the misfortune of 2 quote-unquote quicker drivers, I think. It's fair to say that they were, but mistakes drawn out from Luca Seracini and the other man that, I mean, I said we were going bottom up last time, but we didn't. But, I mean, that was just one of the most entertaining races from a what the hell is he doing perspective. So, Dan, if you want to take it away, what the hell were you doing?
That might have been one of the most entertaining for you guys. It probably was one of my worst. For me personally, let's start at the beginning. I was absolutely rapid in qualifying. I didn't actually expect to have a lot of pace, but I was definitely looking at P3, maybe even P2 in qualifying. And then I just had lots of moments at the end. not sure if you saw, but me and Connor and Kyle were coming out of the pits. I thought Connor was letting me by, so I tried to move, tried to overtake him, and he just completely hit me. Probably was my fault. You don't really overtake in the pit lane, but it really did look like he was letting me by. But then I think I messed up Jack's qualifying lap. I'm not sure if I did, but I do apologise to him if I did. But P4 in the quali. As I said last weekend, I'm probably one of the best jumpers in the league. So obviously, I went from P4 to P2. Absolutely smashed it on the start. Then it was looking good, but those tires, those medium tires, were probably my second worst enemy. Actually, probably third worst enemy that day. But yeah, tire wear was absolutely horrendous here. So I was like falling down. I had a bit of a spin as well, which dropped me back a few places. Then I pitted for the hards, and I actually did look pretty good. I pitted for the hards, and I was gaining a few places. But the real killer was fuel. I told Jack about this, and he said it was a big no-no for Imola, that you don't even touch it. I might have messed around with it, and halfway through the race, I had like 0.10, like, what do you call it, fuel left. So halfway through the race, I was just preserving all my fuel. And then I went into the pits, and then obviously I accidentally switched to my Inter tires. I was looking for my hard tires. I just couldn't find them. I didn't realize we only had one pair. So yeah, I only had. I went into the Inter tires by accident. Yeah, it was just very unfortunate. Then at the end, for a bit of laughs, I knew I was P10. I went to the wets, which actually was pretty good because then I gained a lot of fuel. Then I was going to go for the fastest lap at the end because I actually had a decent amount of fuel left. But when I went in the pits, it just completely ended my race because I was like a lap down. I think Jenkovan was nearby, the race winner. So by far one of my worst weekends ever. I told you I hated Imola. At the start, it was looking good, but at the end, it was just horrendous, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting one to watch at the very least. But yeah, I mean, it was when I didn't even notice you'd gone onto the Inters initially, and Owen pointed it out, and it was slightly confusing. But yeah, I mean, it was not necessarily the greatest weekend then. But how are you planning on bouncing back on that one, of course, as we head through the season and as we head to our first sprint race of the season, Austria next week?
I'll definitely won't make that mistake again, going on to the Inters by accident. I mean, the sprint race, it is a reverse grid. I'm not sure where I am after that disaster class, but I know I got 1 point from that. So I'm not sure if any drivers overtook me in the standings, but I'm always looking forward to sprint races. I think it's a good way to capitalize on maybe even a potential win. I don't even know if I can, but Austria is a good circuit to go back to. I had an okay race last season. I think it was APC's 100th race. I think I had an okay race. I think I got P4. So who knows? Maybe a race win the sprint and maybe P4, maybe a podium. It's definitely what I'm looking forward to, another podium this season. But yeah, we'll have to see.
It would be a great way to bounce back. Owen, have you got anything for Dan?
Yeah, right. When you went on to full wets, was that just to have a little bit of fun, or was that because you thought you could preserve fuel on them?
For a bit of laughs, I can't lie. I knew I was 10th, just go on the wets, but actually was pretty good to preserve fuel, which was pretty good. Then again, I tried to go onto the softs at the end because I actually preserved a lot of fuel. But then yeah, the race finished. So it all started all for laughs going on the wets. Then I realised it actually was a good strategy because I wasn't gaining any places. I was looking to take that fastest lap going on the softs, but yeah, it just didn't really work out. So went on the wets for the laughs, but yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Dan, then, for that one. And of course, it wasn't the greatest race for you, but Of course, we'll get the opportunity to see you next week, and hopefully it'll be a better race. Well, I can't imagine it could have been any worse, could it?
Yeah, I mean, if I get even worse next week, then I must have gone on wet tires for the entire race. But yeah, looking forward to next week, and yeah, definitely won't make that mistake again.
Yes, well, it could be a full wet race. You never know. But the next driver we're going to bring in had a little bit of a better day, but not by much, as he was only 6 seconds off being disqualified through penalties. I know I've just teed you up there, but do you want to just talk us through that race?
Not really. No, I mean, I will, but I don't really want to talk about it. But I've jumped into an interview, so I kind of have to, don't I? I don't know. I felt really good during practice. Like I actually felt pretty confident with my setup. I felt pretty good. But it just seemed to go downhill quite early on. I think I got a great launch. I was fast. I was faster than everyone around me, but I couldn't find the gap. And I think like I had to kind of back out from to miss Ethan, and then Jack was there, and I couldn't find the gap. And then I just got slightly on the grass, and I couldn't brake, so I kind of cut turn one to try not to hit anyone. And luckily, I managed to not hit anyone, but. Yeah, that was unfortunate because Jack was on the hards. I could have probably got that position. Probably got Ethan if the gap was there. But yeah, everyone was too bunched up, so that was a shame. And then I don't know. I just couldn't kind of keep it within the track limits from that point. It's probably one of the highest penalties I think I've ever had since I've been league racing. Even in open lobbies, I don't think I've ever had penalties that high, and I can't really fully explain it. But yeah, I don't know if Dan Riley has mentioned yet, but the forecast was to rain in the middle of that race. So I think everyone was kind of betting on that, and that's why the strategies were kind of all over the place. And I ended up doing the one stop. Look at me, I did the one stop. And it would have probably paid off if I didn't have 21 seconds worth of penalties, but it kept me ahead of Brian. I don't really know what Dan was. Did Dan explain why he was on every single tire?
Saving fuel.
Rainbow Tyre Challenge.
Right. Oh, that's what I thought. Rainbow Tire Challenge. But it was just like he was doing quite well. He had quite a lot of pace. So I'm surprised. Yeah, I honestly I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm looking at sort of the lap times now, and Jenky was just stupidly fast. So yeah, it's unfortunate. I thought actually I was going to do better than I did, but you know what? I think that drops me behind Connor in the standings, which does mean I get to be a position higher than him at the sprint next week. So swings and roundabouts and all that.
Well, yeah, there is that. There's all the tactical stuff coming in for that sprint next week. But how are you feeling about Austria in general as a circuit?
Well, I don't want to jinx it because you know what? Every time I've gone, oh, you know what? I might do all right here. I've not done all right there. I like it. It's one of those ones where it really rewards the fast guys. So I can't see me being anywhere near sort of Chenky and Steve, and I assume he's back next week. And then obviously people like Stuart and Ethan, they thrive on tracks like that. So I'm not looking at a top 5. Probably that's probably not where I'm aiming for, but. I think I can do well. I think I can beat my little group that I seem to be in. Yeah, sort of, Brian and Connor and sometimes Luca. I don't know what Luca's doing for the last couple of races. I feel quite confident that I could probably win sort of out of our group. Although Connor does tend to go well at Austria. It's one of his good tracks. So, but we'll see. I mean, yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm not dreading it. We'll say I'm feeling pretty good. Hopefully, I can get a decent. Maybe a top 3 in the sprint, and then just enjoy that one, and hopefully not have the disasters that I've had here. I think it's really hard to get penalties there. It's doable, like turn 1 especially. You carry so much speed, it's easy to miss, but it's quite hard to get penalties there. So hopefully I don't get any.
Well, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. And when we see you disqualified next week after 30 seconds worth of penalties or whatever, then. Well, I think you can be proven wrong. But Owen, have you got anything for Kyle that isn't just being mean? Because I know that's what I've done throughout the duration of
this. Just one. You said you can't fully explain, your track limit issue and all that. Do you have a corner specifically that you struggled with especially?
Oh, not necessarily. I think I definitely did it. A few of those happened in the chicane, which. Again, was a bit of a surprise to me because during practice and time trial and things like that, I didn't struggle there at all. So I was quite surprised. There was a case of, I think quite early on actually, when I lost the DRS for the first time, I got two wheels on the grass. So as you come in the second sector, we do the really fast left-hander, then you've got like the right and right again. So as I went around the left-hander, I've got two wheels on the grass on the left-hand side, which basically just puts you straight on. And that happened a couple times, and that then put me wide for the next two corners, which trying to overcompensate, I think, and ended up just going a bit wide on those to try and get the time back. But yeah, it's a weird one. I was getting warnings in places I haven't had warnings previously, so it's a bit of a weird one. I mean, I never I never simulate a full race. I just usually simulate a couple of race laps, high fuel, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm quite surprised. I don't really know what went wrong there, but yeah, it's I think I've made the best of a bad situation now. I mean, I've lost. When you look at what position I'm in, I've lost one position because of the penalties, so it's not the end of the world.
Yes, and well, it was just very interesting to watch it come up, and I think it will sound like when you watch it back, like I was goading you on to get those penalties, because I was quite interested actually as to what would have happened if you had reached. Owen said you'd be disqualified on 27 seconds, so
I think it's 27. We've seen that with Luca, I think, last week. So yeah, it's definitely 27. I think. I mean, we've been very disappointing. I've been very disappointed. I've never been disqualified in my life. So that'd been very disappointing. It's disappointing, right? I feel quite disappointed. I sound more cheerful now because I'm talking to you two, and you bring the joy. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna look back on that one when I watch it. I'm back and just go, what were you doing, Carl? What were you doing?
Heard it here first. We bring the joy, and Carl's getting disqualified next week in Austria. Thank you very much for joining us this evening,
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Indeed, you will. See them.
Now we get into the real contenders for the top, and we're going to get into speaking to in uniform condition, as I attempted to do before. It didn't quite work, but we're going to get the opportunity to speak to Ethan Shackleton about that race that looked so good until it didn't. So Ethan, if you want to just talk us through that race from your perspective.
Yeah, trying to think. I had quite a poor launch off the line that frustrated me, and I ended up down in fourth from my P2 grid slot, but I managed to battle my way back up to second. But I had nowhere near Chenki's pace, so I wasn't thinking about the win. I was just thinking about P2, just a safe P2, that'll do me. And then I noticed he got a 10-second penalty, so I'm like, oh, okay, let's see if I can stay within that, but I couldn't. I was just at that point thinking, yeah, safe P2, no risks, no worries. But I wasn't paying attention really, and just ran in the back of Bert. He did nothing wrong. I've looked back at it, and I broke my wing. That annoyed me, and then so I had to stop early, and ended up behind some people. But I still would have finished second quite easily. Like I think I would had the pace to beat Bert still. And then I just spun. I was so annoyed at that. That's pretty stupid. And then it was quite fun because I was battling people at the end actually that also had a broken wing, so it was kind of even. That was strange, but quite fun at that point. Yeah, but disappointing overall. I really should have finished second in this race.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, it's one of those things where it feels like skill-based matchmaking, if that makes sense, when everybody's missing a front wing. But yeah, I mean, of course, in comparison to your regular attempts and regular performances, it was not quite what you would have wanted. But I mean, just looking forward to the next few races, that performance from the two Ferraris, of course, it was very good, apart from when you ended up dropping down at the end. So in terms of the Constructors' Championship, are you feeling like this is your opportunity now and you feel like you can take advantage of it?
Yeah, unfortunately I'm going to be missing next week, and it's a sprint weekend, so there'll be a few more points available, but maybe actually if Bert is a reserve, he might be able to fill my seat. I'm not too sure, so actually maybe it's not so bad. I do feel confident that we'll take the Constructors, though. I think we've got a little more pace in the tank combined compared to the two Mercs. So over the course of a season, we should be good for that.
Well, that's good. I mean, well, we'll see what happens, of course, with that. But you sound pretty confident then. Oh, and have you got anything for Ethan before we let him go?
Not for this one, no. You covered it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Ethan, for joining us this evening, and we'll see you well, not next week, but the week after.
Of course, I look forward to it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, now we get the opportunity to speak to those drivers who finish maybe just that little bit further up, and we're going to start with Jack Weaver and wonder what he feels about this race. Jack, if you could enlighten us, how do you feel about that?
I'm actually. I mean, overall, I think the pace is very strong. I definitely had the pace to go onto the podium. It's just a shame with the penalties, which I really need to try and level out, because that's a few positions I've dropped because of penalties in the last two races. But I think pace is looking good overall. This is one of the tracks I hate normally. So race pace is good. Quality pace is not great, but yeah, I think I made up for it during the race.
Yeah, I mean, it was a decent performance during the race, and of course, in podium contention. Do you think then do you think that actually getting those penalties, and I get this sometimes, and I'm just wondering your perspective on it, whether getting those penalties actually helped your pace because you were less scared of going out off the track limits, or actually it worked the opposite way, where you were more scared of getting more penalties, so you lost time?
I think at the end I was probably more scared. I think during I was all right, but the problem was there's just most of the corners was all right. It was just one I kept failing at like every time, and especially when I was stuck in dirty air, I kept going off at the same corner. It was the same in Bahrain last week. It's just something I need to even out in my driving, and then I think I should be in podium contention.
Well, of course, Imola, one of those circuits where you can have that frustration built up, and that is it's just a byproduct of having to use all of the curbing at a certain circuit. But yeah, I mean, that's absolutely fair enough. Owen, have you got anything for Jack before we let him go?
No, not on this one.
Wonderful.
You never give me anything.
Well, it's the
I have
first
the
time
last
he's been
few.
back this season, so we'll see if he's got any for you next week or something along the
Yeah.
likes. But until then, thank you very much for racing.
No,
We'll see you next
thank
week.
you. Bye.
Right, now we will speak to the last driver in the interview room. We won't get the chance to speak to Andrew Chengfan, we never do, but we will get the chance to speak to the runner-up, Bert, on how his race went. So do you want to talk us through, from your perspective, how that Imola Grand Prix was for you?
So at first, quali was shit. I think I quali like P8, which I was seeing the times, and I know I could do a 15-1. So I was pissed at myself. On turn one, I sadly got bumped into the gravel, so I started the race last. So I was like, I'm gonna take a gamble on the one stop, and yeah, the hards were feeling incredibly nice. And it wasn't until like lap 20 that I put it on the mediums. And yeah, overall, Imola I believe is my best track. I have good pace, and yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, it did look like you had good pace, but I mean, coming in last minute as a reserve, not necessarily expecting to race, it's got to be difficult. But how was the preparation going into the race?
I left school 30 minutes before the race, and I got home 10 minutes before the race.
Well, I mean, that's fair enough. You're going for the is it Max Verstappen approach, the one that just sort of rocks up, gets in the car, and leaves again? So that's fair enough. But I mean, there's different approaches you can take to it, and of course, if you say that Imola's one of your best circuits, then maybe it's just a natural talent. But yeah, I mean, it was fair enough, and it was a very, very good race. What were the thoughts and feelings when you saw Ethan going around with a couple of laps to go?
I was catching up by a few tenths, but then I was like, I have to keep the mediums. I have to let them last until he spun, which was a relief because I was gonna start pushing on those final laps to see if I could get him. But it was sad for him to see him spin, but for me it was a relief, and then I was just easing the car in to get that second place.
Yeah, that's that makes sense. Owen, have you got anything for him before we let him go?
Yeah, was the plan to go for a one-stop always your plan, or was that a result of what happened at the start? Because obviously the two-stop was the favoured strategy in the race.
Well, I went on the hards at the beginning because I saw there was gonna be rain in the middle. So, I was trying to go on the hards till the rain hit. But once I realized that it hit, it was too late for the two stop. So, I decided to keep going as long as I can on the hards. To do the one stop. So yeah, it was kind of my plan all along for the one stop.
That's fair enough then. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and congratulations on a debut podium.
Thank you very much for letting me race in this league.
Of course, it's great to have you here, and great to add to the numbers on the grid, which keeps getting stronger and stronger. And of course, next week we will be having 2 races, and I believe they are both going to be broadcasted, so that is great for you. Great news, as last time we were able to get 100% race in for Austria, and that was of course my debut in the league, and now we're going to get the chance to run it back and do 2 separate races and a whole lot more action. But until next time then, it is going to be goodbye, and we will see you next week. Underway. Dance's authority once again.
My word, this could go wrong. On the brakes, goodness me, what a launch!
Look at that.
It just all comes down to this.